The rolling hills of the East Tintic Mountains in Utah appear at first glance to be a place of quiet, sun-baked serenity. To the casual observer, the landscape west of Utah Lake is a tapestry of sagebrush and limestone, a high desert environment where the only movement is the occasional hawk circling in the thermal drafts. But beneath this stillness lies a labyrinthine reality that defies the peacefulness of the surface. For decades, a specific point on this landscape, a small, unassuming hole in the ground, served as the portal to a world where gravity, geology, and human ambition collided in the most visceral way imaginable. This is the story of Nutty Putty Cave, a site of heroic desperation and, ultimately, a permanent tomb for a man whose only mistake was a single wrong turn in the dark. The tragedy of John Edward Jones is not merely a tale of a caving accident, it is an exploration of the limits of the human spirit when faced with the absolute indifference of the earth. On Thanksgiving weekend in 2009, the world watched as a 26-year-old medical student, husband, and father became the subject of one of the most complex rescue operations in the history of subterranean exploration. It was an event that pitted the most advanced engineering and medical knowledge of the 21st century against a geological trap that had been waiting for millennia. Nutty Putty Cave was never a typical cave system. It was a hydrothermal anomaly, formed not by surface water trickling down, but by superheated groundwater rising from below, dissolving the limestone into a network of vertical, twisting, and incredibly narrow chutes. It earned its name from the soft, brown clay coating its walls, a substance that felt like silly putty, but acted as a treacherous lubricant when moisture or friction was applied. By the early 2000s, the cave was attracting over 5,000 visitors a year, and the constant passage of bodies had polished the rock to a glass-like finish. It was a place where people went to test their nerves, but by 2009, it had already seen 4 major rescues of people wedged in its narrow nooks. John Edward Jones was no amateur. He was a 26-year-old medical student at the University of Virginia, a man of deep faith, and a father to a 14-month-old daughter. He had grown up exploring the caves of Utah with his father and brother, Josh. On November 24, 2009, John, Josh, and a group of friends and family entered Nutty Putty at 8 p.m. for a holiday adventure. About an hour into the trip, saw a waist-high hole and believed he had a waist-high hole and believed he had found it. He inched his way in head first, using his hips and fingers to slide forward. But John wasn't in the Birth Canal. He had entered an unmapped fissure near an area called Ed's Push. The tunnel began to slope downward at a 70-degree angle. As he pushed deeper, the rock compressed around him. The opening was a mere 10 inches by 18 inches, roughly the size of a clothes dryer opening, but jagged and unyielding. John realized his mistake and tried to exhale to compress his chest and slide back out. But when he inhaled, his chest expanded, locking him against the limestone walls. Gravity was now his enemy, pulling him deeper into the tapering V-shape of the fissure. He was trapped upside down, and his arms pinned, one beneath his torso and the other forced backward at an agonizing angle. His brother Josh found him first, seeing only John's navy and black running shoes protruding from the rock. Josh tried to pull him, but every inch gained was lost the moment he let go. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Josh scrambled to the surface to call for help at 9:30 p.m. What followed was a 27-hour battle against the earth itself. Over 100 rescue personnel descended on the cave. See, by saying, "Hi, Susie, thanks for coming." By saying, "Hi, Susie, thanks for coming, but I really want to get out." For the human body, being upside down at a 70-degree angle is a physiological death sentence. Blood pools in the head, increasing intracranial pressure and forcing the heart to work twice as hard to circulate blood against gravity. John's abdominal organs began pressing down on his diaphragm, making every breath shallow and ineffective. As the hours ticked by, his lungs began to fill with fluid, a condition known as pulmonary edema, causing a haunting gurgling sound with every breath. Rescuers worked feverishly with handheld drills, but the rock was a crumbly hydrothermal conglomerate, described by some as being like wet crackers. It wouldn't hold heavy machinery. Their only hope was an elaborate pulley system. They anchored 4 pulleys to the cave walls using steel bolts and a rope through a natural rock bridge. For a brief moment, it looked like a miracle was in reach. An 8-person team pulled with all their might, successfully lifting John high enough to see his rescuer's eyes and even share a smile. He was given water and a radio to speak to his wife, Emily, who was pregnant with their second child. She told him to keep fighting. Oh, that everything would be okay. But the tension on the system was immense. The final pulley was attached to the rock bridge by a short 11mm rope that had been fraying against the sharp limestone. During the 4th pull, the rope snapped. The system went slack instantly. A heavy metal carabiner flew back like a projectile, striking lead rescuer Ryan Schertz in the face and knocking him unconscious. Without the tension, John plummeted back into the fissure, wedging himself even deeper than before. The silence that followed was heavy. John, sensing the end, uttered in despair, "I'm going to die right here. I'm not going to come out of here, am I?" His physical and mental state began to deteriorate rapidly. He started talking about seeing angels and demons around him, a sign of severe disorientation and oxygen deprivation. The rescuers were exhausted. Dave Schertz even got stuck himself while trying to reach John and had to be pulled out. At 11:56 p.m. on November 25th, after 27 hours of fighting, John Edward Jones went into cardiac arrest and was pronounced dead. The decision that followed was agonizing. Experts concluded that retrieving his body would take weeks and risk the lives of more rescuers in the unstable rock. With the family's consent, it was decided that Nutty Putty Cave would become John's eternal resting place. On December 3rd, 2009, the cave was sealed forever. High-grade explosives were used to collapse the ceiling directly over John, and the main entrance was filled with a massive concrete plug. Today, all that remains at the surface is a memorial plaque and a flat slab of concrete. The tragedy of Nutty Putty is a reminder of the absolute indifference of nature. It wasn't malice that took John Jones. It was physics, a single navigation error, and the unyielding weight of the earth. Above ground, life moved on. Emily eventually remarried and worked to ensure John's children remembered their father as a man of faith and adventure. One but below the Utah sky, 100 feet down in a passage barely wider than a human torso, a cave became a tomb. It remains a place of absolute silence where the earth never let go.